Thanks for tuning into the All Funds Investment Podcast. Excuse the mess behind me. Today's episode features Judith Peterson. She's a great friend of the podcast, and she's a B2B go-to-market expert. This episode will be a little bit different than usual. This will be geared more toward marketing and salespeople within the financial services space. So there's a lot of good tidbits as well here for those in the fund space or just on the marketing in general. Just a reminder here that nothing said is legal, tax, or investment advice. Check out the full disclaimer below. We hope you enjoy this conversation with Judith. Please like and subscribe if you find this information helpful, and check out the links in the description to connect with us, Judith.
How do you educate people along the buyer journey so that there's this handoff to sales, right? Because I love my salespeople, right? And so I find it interesting that if you're doing marketing properly, by the time somebody picks up the phone, you've educated them as a prospect and set your internal stakeholder up well to have a conversation where they get to actually have the conversation that they want versus refuting what people are saying, competitors are saying about you, right? That to me is the sign of really good marketing. That's one of the things that I think is really important. To really understand what a good prospect is for sales and trying to reverse engineer and make all your touch points of your kind of campaigns or programs or whatever you want to call them, so that you're delivering on that. And that obviously, all these things depend on kind of size and scale of the organization that you're working with. One size obviously doesn't fit all. People have different sets of internal stakeholders. They have different size marketing departments. They have different budgets. And so you have to take all those variables and figure out what the best path forward is.
Absolutely. And you talked about a couple of different things there, but coming back to your time working in the fund industry, at that time, were you doing marketing for these funds, or kind of how did you make this transition into the marketing side of the business?
So I think, look, when I was working at the hedge fund, kind of creating their, I guess, a lot of their reporting and stuff, that was more just an operational, because I had been an analyst in management consulting. I really, I knew Excel. I knew how to extrapolate well. And so I knew Excel well, and it's not like there were tons of platforms out there. So you had to just know how to build with whatever was available. And that just kind of got me in the industry. Where when I went to the the fund of funds, I had already been doing marketing for a while. So I happened to land in that industry with the skills. It was kind of the marriage of two things, right? I was kind of doing some marketing. I was a bit of a kind of consultant, kind of business analyst, right? And I happened to land in the industry with my business analyst skills, and then kind of moved over to marketing within the same industry. And that's kind of how it transitioned. After I left kind of the investment side of the business, I ended up going to one of the service providers. And it was interesting to go to the technology side of the business, because the audience was different. Now I'm kind of on the outside trying to get in, right? And and thinking about, one of the things that was really interesting was that you had these large scale service providers that had normally been marketing to banks, right, to institutions. And I, knew that from a marketing perspective, they had to think more B2C, meaning you're marketing to an individual, because most times, especially during that time, most of the money in a lot of these funds was from an individual. They happen to call the company or the firm or the fund, whatever, something, but you were really marketing to that individual, and that person, it was their money that was probably going to buy the solution or buy this or that. And that was a real shift for the large scale kind of companies that I had worked for. They weren't used to thinking that way. And it was like explaining to them that one size doesn't fit all, right? You have to think. That's where really the audience driven kind of marketing approach that I've developed, I guess, kind of came from. So, when you think about, and I guess this is to me is the difference between segmentation versus classification, right? So when you have people that are just saying, well, they're this asset class, we have products for that, they're this, they're this assets under management. They're looking at what they are, not who they are. And so when you kind of peel that back and you start thinking about who they are, I really believe, and I've proven this over my career, that most people in the investment management industry are high net worth or ultra high net worth individuals. And when you start to think about trying to get the attention of that audience, again, back to no one in this industry needs a free drink in a beige room, right? They're always looking for the secret in their, in their trading strategy, in their this, in their that. How do you deliver an experience, right? And this kind of gets back to some of the stakeholder management stuff that we have talked about in the past, Skylar. How do you deliver an experience that is unique, right? If they're going to go somewhere or be in an environment, how are you doing something that is congruent with their brand, right? Would they, when I think about branding a company, I think, would they shop here? Right? Would they shop here? Because they consider, individuals consider every brand that they're associated with to be an extension of themselves. But this was a really, like, wait, what? And this was, probably 15 years ago. So my whole thing was go where they go. So when I first started marketing to this industry on the technology side, what we did was partner with art galleries because that's where people were going. So whatever the hardest, art from China was super hot. So we partnered with this gallery. We did an event there, and then we did a wine tasting. We've done bourbon tasting, mezcal tasting. Whatever the hot art was in London, it was at one time Scottish art. So we did an event there. And again, we had an event once in London with, a Chagall exhibit. But it was, we literally had a velvet rope and people were waiting in line to get into our event. And it was crazy. And this was just something that the company had never experienced before because they were used to marketing to banks. And it was a very just new approach to doing things, right? It was pretty forward thinking at the time, right? I also made sure that, the things that were important to them, like charities, that we were involved in those things as well. Now, it's kind of common sense that people do these things, but at the time it was a real new approach. And it was cool to see that a company that had been in business doing things the same way for a long time had the agility to kind of try things differently. And we were successful.
That's amazing. That's very cool. Yeah, that's definitely changed. And obviously what we do today, you've had a lot of experience. And obviously there's probably a lot of pulling people forward through the process, right? Some were okay with it. Some were moving, kicking, and screaming.
Well, all joking aside, I think as a marketer, I think when you're so aligned with sales, right? My thing is delivering engagement, right? Because sales guys can get behind it. And again, there's when I start out, I like to kind of find out from the sales team, like, where are you at? Is it new customers? Is it business development? In our industry, it's a very clubby industry. It's very word of mouth, right? So there's the ecosystem of influence. If I can't get at you directly, I'm going to try and get 7 or 8 touch points, to you from the people around you. Fund formation lawyers, audit and tax, custodian, whatever. Excuse me. And so that proportion of kind of directly trying to go to them versus indirectly trying to go to them, I think each firm has to kind of decide where they've been successful. But for me, I think getting buy-in, if you can provide for sales guys a way to do business development, or, I like to call it the giver's gain model. I'm not the first person to say that, where all your strategic partners that have been giving you referrals, you're partnering with them doing thought leadership. You're featuring them in things. You're having them on your panels. I mean, that creates the trusted partner dynamic, which I think is crucial in this industry, because, we're all kind of going after the same clients, right? And so what differentiates some, yes, price, hopefully you have good service reputation, but I think a lot of it is the ecosystem of the trusted partner, and a referral, I think, is and someone introducing you is, to me, an easier way to get business sometimes than doing marketing, right? Facilitating the business development and the interaction.
Definitely, I totally agree with that. Yeah, 100%, and especially when we'll get into the sales and marketing aspect of the collaboration there as well, which is also a topic near and dear to my heart as well, Judith, as you know. But let's step back in and talk about, just kind of from a foundational perspective, the go-to-market strategy. You being a proven go-to-market strategist, an expert in the space, maybe define for the audience kind of what the importance is of a go-to-market strategy, and what they should think about and everybody's different, right? But just from an overall view, what your thoughts are regarding that.
Great question, because it's the way that I see the world, I suppose, and I think that every company hires whatever kind of marketer they think they need, right? I'm a marketer that, for example, who really, again, I think it's important to associate yourself as closely to revenue as possible, and that's how I'm wired. And I think you have to be when you're going to deliver to sales guys. So the way I see it, and I think some people do define go-to-market strategy, is target market, message, distribution. So we talked a little bit about target market and the difference between classification versus segmentation, right? And really understanding who are they, how do they make decisions, and their ecosystem of influence, right? And that kind of speaks to kind of the message, right? Where, are you using a lexicon that's relevant? Things are fluid in our industry, depending on which geography you're in. There might be obviously different, regulatory stuff, compliance stuff, all that stuff. How are you being specific to them and not stale, right? Because there's nothing I can't stand more than looking at something and thinking you could see 5 different competitor logos on there and you wouldn't know whose piece it was, right? I think it's better to do less things that are more impactful. And I guess the last piece, the distribution. Where are they? Where do they hang out? Where do they aggregate, the plot points to make a decision, right? And so again, when you kind of think about the ecosystem of influence, their where may be word of mouth from someone that's in their a center of influence, right? Their ecosystem of influence. And the other thing I would say is, kind of back to when I started, are they at charity events? Are they, where are they? How do you get them out, right? How do you deliver experiences? So that's kind of how I frame things. And what's interesting is, besides sales, you could also have, your product marketing set, which is also gathering insights on, competitors and different other influences that can help shape some of those things. For example, on the messaging side of things, or on the distribution side of things.
Oh, that's great. That's very helpful. And from my experience too, just the collaboration with marketing and sales and bringing together the stakeholders, right? And to your point, kind of take an intake or a pulse of the firm, understanding where the relationships lie, who's going after what type of audience. Are they all aligned with the right audience, right? Across the team. There may be a mismatch there, and a reframing of what they need to do. And I like your point about the messaging. You mentioned this earlier, storytelling, right?
Yeah.
What does a story really say? And are we telling the right story to the right audience at the right time in the market? I think that's crucial. And I think kind of maybe going back, we can step into just some of the collaboration with the sales teams. What does that look like? I know that's very. Some people have a kind of a connotation that sales and marketing are more of a blended team, and I disagree with that. It very much work in lockstep, right? I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on that.
So kind of back to what's interesting is back to the distribution. I love empowering the sales guys with what I call digital snacks, right? So you have your main feed channel of your company, right? And hopefully you're putting out thought leadership or you're partnering with somebody. And again, very few firms I know have unlimited budget, so you have to get resourceful about, and sometimes it's a great efficient way to add to your volume by partnering with some of your people in your ecosystem of influence. But you can put things out on the main feed. What I think is really important is the activation piece. So a couple examples of that would be, how, when you think about however many salespeople you have, their collective network, right? Most sales guys have at least 2 to 3,000 contacts, at least, right? So even if you have a small team, you've got a pretty decent, set of contacts, right? The secondary set of eyeballs on most of that, you would be surprised how big it gets. For example, if you had, 15 sales guys worldwide, that's probably, we'll say even with dupes, kind of 20 to 25,000 in contacts. The secondary set of eyeballs on that, when someone comments, likes, responds to it, is 16 million eyeballs. Now, you can spend money going to use somebody's kind of database or list or whatever, but you can also do a lot of DIY things if you're clever about the way that you feed your sales guys with these digital snacks, right? And that also gets to the kind of the trust factor, right? When people see something on a corporate channel, great, it's a corporate message, right? When they see it from an individual, and most sales guys are pretty good, I've experienced with being able to, write a post that's authentic for them. That to me speaks to, kind of, by the time if you did want to make a cold call, they've seen your post, they get to know who you are indirectly, and you're creating a path for sales to have a better phone conversation, either because they know you from your content, they've seen you on other people's feeds, right? Just all those things, right? Malcolm Gladwell says it takes 7 or 8 times to create, reputation and impression, whatever it is. So when you think about over time, if you're doing that for your sales guys, and again, not hard, doesn't have to be super complicated, right? But if you're feeding your sales guys, and that's a DIY in-house thing, right? That to me facilitates the relationship and the trust between marketing and sales. Hopefully, depending on the maturity of the organization and with the scope, and we talked about budget, right? Even if you're smaller but agile, you can do these things to build, right? To get to a place where hopefully then you can show traction. Hopefully at some point you've got some kind of closed won deals that marketing can show, like, hey, we did a nice handoff, whatever. That will in turn, back to the data points, create a case study for asking for more budget or different things, right? To kind of prove yourself and build momentum with what you have going for you. And it also, again, I think it's just so important for sales and marketing to work, hand in hand and pass the baton to one another carefully.
Those are really good points. I think kind of bringing it all together. I like your example with like the social media, how, you post, somebody comments on it, all of a sudden these, just kind of a spiral effect where, you get so many eyeballs and open up so many conversations. In terms of like channels, how do you think about like different channels for marketing? And I mean, that could be something as simple as like social media, but how do you kind of think about all those and working together with them?
So look, I think in terms of where I like to start is, I think for B2B, which is predominantly where I've been, I think a lot of stuff really happens on LinkedIn, right? I think a lot of people use it a bit as their news feed. Obviously, they have other sources as well, but I think when you think about that channel, just for a quick skim, right? And you have to presume that people are slightly digitally saturated. So again, how are you doing stuff that's like not complicated, short message, skim and dive? I mean, these are people that get 200 emails, 200, 300 emails a day, right? How do I not waste your time and become, trusted as succinct, easily digestible, but they want to continue to learn more, right? They may or may not take action. I think the thing is to build that reputation, so you're creating the environment where hopefully they take action or you get an introduction, right? And you can kind of, from business development, kind of nurture that relationship, personally. So that's, I, I, I wish that there were like more kind of channels. And I think that that's where I do like doing very bespoke events that are curated well. But again, I like to do it in a way that sales can kind of facilitate the invites, because if you know someone, getting a marketing email to an event is a bit downgrading the relationship. If I, it's
Right.
similar to when I get, this is, I'm sure, quite provocative, but I can't stand it when I get one of those holiday letters from somebody I know. It's like, really? Like, I'd rather meet you for a cup of coffee once a year and hear about how all your kids won medals in something, or they got the, you know, but if I know you and you send me one of these, I'm sure I'm insulting people. If you send me one of these messages, to me, it's downgraded. Like, you're treating me like an audience, right? Which I think is like kind of like a no-no, right? If I know you, don't treat me like an audience. Don't market to me. Don't, that stuff needs to be sent from sales personally if they have the relationship, right? And again,
Right.
I don't know why. Clearly, that's one of my hot buttons. So you won't. Neither one of you will be getting a holiday letter from me.
Well, it's just like sending a warm email versus a cold email, right?
Right,
Obviously,
right,
someone you know, like, and trust, they
right.
trust you. That's going to be
Right.
more
Even,
well
even from a
received.
sales perspective, like being, now I'm adding value to somebody is,
Right.
kind of like you said, coming from a robot.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, if you're doing your events properly, and again, nobody needs a free drink in a beige room. Hopefully, you're inviting them to something that's compelling, right? And there's only so many spots. And then when they see all the social posts going out afterwards, if they didn't get an invite, hopefully there's a little kind of like,
Oh,
like
FOMO.
FOMO. Yeah,
Yeah.
I really dig some good social
Yeah.
FOMO,
I like it. I like it. No, that's great. I guess going back to what you talked about earlier too, about, different companies, depending upon what their current setup is, they're going to be a little bit different how they approach this. So as far as adapting that go-to-market strategy for businesses of different sizes and stages, kind of what does that look like? Obviously, you have to make an assessment coming into the door as to what makes sense, what are the resources and things that are available to you to kind of work with, right? Just curious on your thoughts on that.
So, couple things. I do like ChatGPT as a starting point. It's a huge time saver. You can do a lot of research on getting keywords. You can kind of build your program very quickly, right? Depending
Yeah.
on how much resources available. I also like the idea of creating a private channel, and for some of the firms that I've worked for that have, a lot of acquisitions, you could certainly create a private channel and just dump all their thought leadership there and teach it, what's already happened, right, to kind of generate ideas and thoughts and all kinds of stuff. So I think that those are efficient ways to get things going. But I when I start a program with somebody, kind of 30, 60, 90, I think it's important to set clear expectations about how do we get something going and put points on the board immediately while we're perhaps moving longer term to deal with some of the stickier problems, right? Doing a website is not going to happen super quickly. So, how do you perhaps, tweak things? But that's why I'm a big fan of, kind of when I start with a firm, just getting event on the books. It gets everybody aligned. It's kind of like when you have a party in your house, or, you have people over. All of a sudden you're like, all the crap that you've like ignored that needs to be fixed or painted or whatever, you gotta get your house in order, right?
Right.
And so what I think is interesting is it hones everybody on a common goal, which is great for team building, right? And gets everybody aligned, and it kind of activates everybody. And then to me, you have something to point to in a short period of time that 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 is like it demonstrates like we worked together, this worked well. You know what I mean? You're obviously going to have attendance, right, which you can point to. You're going to facilitate this opportunity that even if people can't come to the event, your sales guys can still be like, let's still meet up. Sorry you missed the event. You know what I mean? Let's, it's a reason for people to kind of build their funnel. And that's I think really important. So that to me is kind of one of the short-term things. And then when you crystallize perhaps what you're going to be talking, if you're having panels or however you're going to structure the thought leadership portion of it, that also kind of gets you some assets in a short period of time that you can put on the website and start getting other things off of that. So I like to say kind of fast and slow twitch muscles moving at the same time, right? And managing that. And again, it always depends how much resource people have. There are lots of things in marketing that cost a lot of money, right? And so the key, I think, is to do some of the DIY stuff and be a good utility player with, I still like writing things, right? I still like writing social posts or helping to write things because it forces me to sit with sales and listen to how they sell and what people care about. So I think you just have to be resourceful. I mean, I do think the Chat GPT thing is fascinating, but I don't. I think you still, humans need to still prompt it, and humans still need to prompt other humans.
100%.
Yeah. So
I love the fact you're a fan of ChatGPT, obviously AI, and I think that's a lot of what you're talking about is it's. I think people sometimes think about it. It's a be all end all. It's not. You need the human
right,
intervention, right, as a starting point. The expert in the room to really kind of direct the ship, if you will. I think actually I read a few places where many financial firms in our industry are now creating private internal knowledge chatbots where the entire team can go in there and ask a question and get an answer from a global view, which is interesting, right? But yeah, kind of going back to what you talked about, having a compelling event, which is amazing, kind of aligning everybody on a common goal, which is awesome. Team building. How do you quantify engagement? And metrics are crucial in that analysis as you move forward in that process.
So a couple of things. I know a lot of people call BS to dark social. I do not. I'm a big fan of dark social.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's just the obvious stuff. Hopefully, you're going to see an uptick in your website and some of your other stuff, depending on how sophisticated you are and some of your engagement and your content types. I think kind of you can start to optimize some of that stuff. I think for me, it really is. Hopefully, you're tracking in Salesforce around the stuff that you're doing. I think it's always an interesting question to ask and put back to sales. Like where does the MQL, like where is the Q part of the MQL, right? So to answer your question, I could kind of glean lots of stats from lots of things.
Just a quick point, Judith. Can you clarify what MQL is for everybody?
Oh, sorry, marketing. Right, that's
marketing
okay.
person.
So marketing qualified lead versus a sales qualified lead. So for me, I think there are a lot of times just because somebody does something, they comment, they like, they whatever. I do not consider that an MQL, right? So I think it's important in that instance to get clear with sales, right? To understand kind of what their funnel is and what each of the stages is, right? And then I guess I would kind of cross-reference that with the buyer journey and kind of like where do those things overlap, or where's the Q in the MQL, right? How is marketing helping to qualify? People can take an action, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're interested, right? Do you build a kind of lead scoring engine? Do you kind of like, when does someone's interest really become an intention? And I think that's a question I love to ask sales guys.
Yeah, it's definitely can be subjective, right? Depending upon who you're talking to.
Right. Right.
When's the needle move for certain types of leads versus opportunities? How does that happen? So yeah, definitely a great question to ask.
Look, I think that there are, I think what's interesting about referrals is, it's probably longer but stickier relationship. Do you know what I mean? It's not someone filling out a form. It's kind of the building trust over multiple kind of interactions and trying to do things. But ironically, marketing can really help with that. I mean, if you're doing it properly, to me as a marketer, I want to know the marketing people behind the person that's the referral partner. How are we on each other's radar? It's almost like ABM, right? Account-based marketing, because if they're great people that are giving referrals, well, then how, what's the, how are we going to work together? We clearly have the same client base. And I know for some people that's tricky because, there are multiple fund formation lawyers, you don't want to show favoritism, but there's plenty of thought leadership for all of us, right? And there's plenty of ways to kind of get people involved and do things together. But again, when I think about how, and both of you can answer this better than me, when I think about how salespeople want to spend their time versus have to, right? It's always a toss-up because you want as much data and insights from sales in a way to show patterns, right? But I know that it's really time consuming. That's a whole other rabbit hole, kind of the whole whatever CRM system you're using. And so, yeah.
No, I think that's great. And just from my perspective, Mike, you can answer this too, just from a sales perspective. I'm always a fan of being, a constant touch point with the marketing person, team, whoever that may be at an organization, just to make sure that we're in sync to talk about trends, just especially since salespeople are all over the place. They're traveling, right? They're going to conferences and events. They're hearing various stories and information and data that's kind of thrown at them on a daily basis. Whereas marketing may not be as much, they may not see that as much, right? So it's definitely, you have to kind of make sure you're going back to your marketing teams and saying, hey, here's what's happening in the marketplace. Here's what we're seeing. And then how do we craft that into a meaningful message that we can use? To your point, Judith, the story, and then how does that align with what we are trying to convey in the marketplace? So definitely important. And the partnership, aspect of the centers of influence. I've always played the long game, as you know, in that space. That's where I get bulk of my referrals and opportunities. And I always go from a side of abundance, meaning that there's always something for everybody out there. It's not a zero sum game in my book. There are many lawyers and attorneys, and some will take on certain types of business, some may not. I think if you, just my thought is, is if you take the time to understand the entire business landscape of a firm, not just what you're trying to sell or trying to focus on, but you'll get more from that. And working with, folks like yourself to really kind of pinpoint certain things and help support the buyer journey and what we're trying to do as salespeople out in the marketplace is helpful for sure.
Look, there's, oh, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that's a really good point. Just, getting sales and marketing involved together and between thought leadership, and/or research, kind of all putting their heads together, really, really creates the most effective marketing and, kind of spreads from there.
Look, I even think it's valuable, depending on how big the team is, the sales team, even if you don't have resources to do tons of thought leadership, if you have these referral partners, figure out what's important to them and post their thought leadership and just comment, in a thoughtful way, right? And highlight what they've already done. And just, again, elevate them and empower them, because, and people see that kind of stuff. They know it, they see it. I think there's a lot of content out there, and it could be, repurposed, and, there's lots of ways to create a point of view.
Right.
Right.
No, that's important point as well, Judith, which I think is helpful, is repurposing content. I think, some people think it's a one and done situation, but no, you can really recraft that, reframe the article, whatever piece that you have that you've created internally to move forward with that. Let's switch gears real quick and just talk about, obviously, when things go wrong, right? So when companies get it wrong,
I love this question.
Or implementing their strategy, what are your thoughts there on that?
Have I done the wrong thing, or am I fixing my own mistake, or am I fixing somebody else's? I think there's a couple things when people miss the mark, I guess is the way I would say you're doing. And it's not even miss the mark, I would say probably the origin is they miss their revenue targets. So, right. Yeah. And so where does that leave you, right? Because, I guess, in kind of trying to understand where people have perhaps missed, I think when we kind of go back to the data and what data, people, the firm has, right? To try and understand and piece together, like, did we put the emphasis in the wrong place? Did we not get any response or reaction to what we've been doing? Do you know what I mean? Like, what's the, I think, it's challenging at times to really kind of get clarity on where why did we miss, right? Was the focus wrong? Was the message wrong? Was back to the three principles, right? Was the distribution channel wrong? Do we, um, are we not compelling? Is our value proposition even compelling enough? Are we, again, so I would put it, I guess, back to you two and say, out of curiosity, um, define wrong for me. Right? Like, I think to myself, you missed your revenue target. So something did not go right.
I think that summarizes it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you could definitely go upstream and unpack that, right? So what was it?
Yeah.
There was a misalignment on the conversation about where they needed to go from a target perspective or buyer journey. It could be, we discussed this in January and the market has changed, right? So that go-to-market strategy is no longer relevant.
Right.
So that's another question. How often do you kind of retweak and retool the strategy and making sure you're on point? Almost like flying a plane, right? The minor course corrections as you go along the way. How often are we re-engaging and having a conversation internally to make sure that outside forces and what we're looking at in the market are congruent to what we're doing?
Yeah. And then product market fit. Does this product belong here?
That's a great point. Let me kind of ask you both a question that is slightly it's tangential to this question. What has each of you something in this realm that you learned the hard way?
I started my career, from the ground up as well. I would say just a couple things. One is quick to make a decision on understanding. So, for example, when you have a call with potential opportunity from a sales perspective, to quick to just get the information. I think I see this with a lot of new salespeople that they get the points that they have on the script, right? Like, here are the questions I need to ask, but they don't really dig into the details as to why that's a problem for the company or why it's just one piece, right? They don't pull back the entire pieces of the onion, if you will, the layers. They just pull back one layer and say, okay, that's the answer I need. Let's check the box. Let's move forward. But no, you got to really have to understand the pain points of the reason why the company is experiencing that and where they really want to go and what's their entire business ecosystem. I think that once I learned that, I had a lot better experiences moving forward with conversations about what I'm trying to convey or sell, or with what I'm doing from a service or product perspective, because now I really understand their pain points and where their head's at as an organization, not just as this initial conversation. So that's one big thing I took away from my early days of trying to figure out sales when it came from operations, if you will.
I think on my end, just in terms of just getting what you need from the marketing team as a salesperson, getting the collateral you need, getting the content you need, things to be able to share with people. I think those are some of the biggest things like I've, just encountered in my time where, you're not getting this on time. You don't have this, just working with the marketing team to make sure that they understand what they're putting together as well.
Right.
That it speaks to our clients and prospective clients.
What I like about your answer, Mike, is I always try and encourage my teams. It's me or my team, right? If you're going to say no, say yes to something, right? So like, there's also the kind of scenario when you walk in and people, like just kind of want it all because they want it all, right? And so I think the stakeholder management piece, as I've matured in my career, is something to really get clarity on, to figure out how to feed the sales guys, right? Because some things take longer than others. You don't have as much control over things. I mean, that's like what you have control over as a marketing person and as a contributor is so crucial to getting things done, because you can't set expectations until you understand, right? When it's just you doing everything, there's you have control over when you can get things done, right? Or I know my limits. I know how to kind of uh, I know what I can generate, right? It's when you're dealing with multiple people or agencies, there's a lot of stakeholder management stuff. So what I try and teach kind of junior people is like, figure out what you can do quick and dirty, right? Because sometimes you got to set expectations. I can't do that now. I can get to that second quarter. But what can we do that's low hanging fruit to just give them something? Again, if you're going to say no, say yes to something. And it may not be as satisfying for the sales guys, but you're trying to do. They see you trying to do something, right?
Really,
Right.
really good point, Judith. Like just coming from like the startup world where it's like, you know, kind of a little bit more like rough and dirty. Whereas like, some people that maybe have come from a large corporation, they want to make sure everything is perfect. It's picture
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah,
A lot of times it's just get it out there. Just
yeah.
we can fix it later. We just need
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Well,
Done is better than perfect, right? A lot of times starting out.
and by the way, and I want to get back to whatever you were going to say, Skylar. What I find fascinating, and I think both of you are really good at this, is there's lots of tools out now that make it easier for a marketing person to be more DIY, right? Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but I think that there are lots of ways that you can do professional things, right? That give you control, right, of what you can kind of generate, you know?
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. There's a lot of different things you can do now that really kind of move the needle. I think the key is moving forward always, right? That's always been my thought, even in life. You constantly have to move forward.
Yeah. By the way, all these marketing tips work on my husband too. Everything we talked about, every single thing.
My other comment was going to be this is a team sport, but I don't think that would apply in that case.
Uh,
But no, I really is. It really is for I mean, as a salesperson or as a marketing team, you really have to work together. You can't, if you're not communicating with one side or the other, you can't blame the other side. It's like, hey, we're all in this together. We're all in the same boat, right? We both have to row. We both have to communicate as to what's happening in the marketplace. So marketing can help with the messaging, can help in crafting the buyer journey and making sure we're all on the same page. So definitely, it's really crucial, right?
Absolutely.
yeah, I think for me, depending on what the culture is wherever you're going, I I always, I guess, get a lot of gratification out of working with sales teams, because it is a bit of a kind of sports mentality, right? Like you're there to win. You're there to win. And I think that that's actually what I also appreciate as I've matured in my career, about really being a good trusted partner in this kind of referral network, kind of the influencer network, is that I find it really satisfying when I see an introduction that I've made kind of and hopefully you're dealing with people that value what you're giving, right? And or you're failing fast, right? uh
Yeah,
so
100%. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Judith, how do you see the evolution of go-to-market strategies? How do you see things changing in the coming years?
I think, again, we touched on a couple of these points throughout our conversation. I think that um, tools are becoming more accessible. uh, there are ways to do things as a marketer that don't have to be enterprise-wide software, right? There's a lot of tools that are coming out that really can help you do things. And again, depending on the size of the organization and kind of quality control and however that's got to go through, whatever the different departments are within the marketing ecosystem. But I am a big fan of ChatGPT. I do think that there are lots of foundational things that you can use it for to go to market faster, and you can be a lot more efficient. Um, and I think you need a market perspective to be able to teach it what you need. I also like what you were touching on, Skylar, what we were both touching on. I do think that there's an opportunity for companies to really get the tone of voice and style right with their existing, in their own channel, kind of teach it how to help you, your company, your tone of voice, your brain trust, and still obviously have, the people that are your brain trust still kind of refining it, right, with a market specific kind of lexicon or whatever. But I think the efficiency stuff is I find fascinating, and I love it because it lays the groundwork for you. And again, the stuff that I find really rewarding is when I'm partnering with sales, and we're doing something together, because someone that we used to work with, Skylar, used to say, I always appreciated this. She said, when a deal comes through the door, lots of hands touched it. And I think that is so true. I think about that a lot. It's that, to me, the most fulfilling part of, kind of the work that we all do.
Yeah, it's very, very true and very appropriate. Yeah, we all kind of are in it together, and we've crafted this piece of artwork. That's has everybody has been part of the sculpture, if you will, of the creative. Which interesting. You kind of bring up the Chat GPT. Obviously, we talked about this. I'm a big fan of AI. And what things specific to Chat GPT and other things that are tools and systems and workflows that are being built and are continuing to evolve. It's interesting that the creative and marketing side of things have been some of the first areas that have helped with the efficiency process, right? Even like artwork or creating
Yeah.
graphics, things that you can really kind of move quickly now as a marketer or part of a marketing team, to help on the sales side and back and forth on both sides there. So to your point, people that are maybe having a smaller firm, 2, 3, 4 person size firm, they can really kind of move quickly. And that'd be another thing too, in talking about, adaptability, larger firms versus smaller firms. Can they now create at the same level
Yeah.
or compete at the same level, if you will, given the fact that they can make decisions faster potentially and
Right.
move quicker from a scale perspective. So that's interesting too.
I do think it's a huge competitive advantage.
I totally agree. Yeah, it's definitely going to change things moving forward. To your point, the next 2 to 5 years.
I think it's even faster than that. I do feel kind of evangelical when I talk about it, like I should have a gospel choir behind me. But I am really like, I do think it's going to happen even faster than that, Skylar.
I think you're right. The state of change is a constant phenomenon.
Yeah.
And I just, again, I think I mentioned this too. I took a course, AI business leaders. Shout out to Allie Miller, who put this on, which is fantastic. Just talking about how fast things are changing now with AI, with things in the marketplace, with technology, with business, and just a lot of different forces moving in so different directions. It's going to be an exciting ride, I think, for all of us the next couple of years for sure.
I think that the interesting thing for me always is, when you're in marketing, you are always beholden to the appetite for change, right? Hopefully you have a voice and you have a seat at the leadership table, but you are always kind of beholden to where people are at, and hopefully they're open-minded and they're able to, they know how to leverage you properly. I mean, that's true of all good leadership, right?
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. One quick question I thought I would ask you, Judith, since you kind of talked about the story and how you kind of built things starting out, which I think is fascinating. How do you balance intuition and data in making strategic marketing decisions? It can be a slippery slope at times, right?
Yeah,
I'm just curious.
the whole art versus science. I totally
Yeah,
agree with you.
yeah.
I think for me, the part that I find, it's obviously a balance, right? Where I intuitively go to is, I suppose, kind of, I don't want to say luxury travel, but what I think about, again, my Rosetta Stone is always, people want to know the secret of whatever it is, right? There's nothing that I think pleases a lot of people. Look, we all have an ego. I mean, you know, there's nothing that's more enjoyable than showing your friends and family what you found, right? So for me, I always think, you know, how do I deliver an experience that is something unique and special? Again, if I were to kind of shop somewhere, how do I think about the experience that we're delivering, not unlike we were this luxury store, right? That you just wanted to be in this place. Like, I went to an Amara tasting recently, and I was like, what? And I was like, then once I knew about it, of course, everybody that I know, I was like, do you know about Amara? And so I do think that there are trends and things, and when you're a seeker, you like to seek, kind of something, and you curious. So sorry, this is a long-winded answer. I think at the cornerstone, I guess the way I would say it succinctly, is that curiosity and discovery, I think, are the blueprint for most fund managers, right? They're seeking alpha. It's a different variety of curiosity and discovery. And I think that they are wired, right, in that way, that they like experiences where someone has done the seeking and they can get curious. So, long
Yeah.
answer, not very succinct.
No, I love that. That's great. That's a great answer for sure.
What about you guys? What would you say is your, I guess, superpower? Like, I think that thing that you just asked me is probably what I would say I think is my kind of superpower. I'm not, I'm sure that people that have the American Express black cards that market that, they know a whole other level. But I think in our industry, it's still fresh and new to do that. But for you too, what are each of your superpowers, you think? How would you describe it?
I would say just using data. Just I really like your question, Skylar, because it's like I think the way I think about that is like using data to make decisions. Start with the creative and then compare it. Try two things, try three things.
Right.
If one of them has any success, try something new again, or build off of what you've already built off of, and try it out and see what works, and then run with it.
Yeah, definitely. I guess for me, in kind of what you just said, Judith. I mean, I've always been a seeker, and I've always been committed to being curious and also lifelong learning, always learning something different and being able to uncover opportunities or interesting insights that I'm able to share with other people. I think that for me, that's really driven a lot in my career, in my life. And even having interesting conversations like this, right, about what's happening, whether it be marketing, business, life opportunity. People connect with that, and I learned that along the way, and I think that's really kind of helped me and helped people I worked with, and that moving their career along or their business or opportunities that they're focused on. Even just I always have told people. I think I picked this up from someone many years ago. A manager said, "Hey, you better know the janitor's name, everybody in your business's name, and what they do and how they do it, and they better know you because you never know where opportunity will come."
It's interesting, Mike, I don't think I answered your question very succinctly, Skylar, but what's interesting, kind of the intuition versus data, like your whole thing is data, Mike, right? I would almost say I'm the opposite of you in that I think I start with my intuition, right? And kind of very persona audience driven, like, what is this? And then kind of balance it out with kind of the realities of like, what should my value proposition be? What should my this? What should my that?
Yeah, it's like walking on a tightrope a lot of times, right? Because I'm kind of the similar fashion of I need I have data, but data can be misleading sometimes too, right? It's like what's the context behind the data to formulate an opinion or understanding, or where you want to go with that intuition, because your intuition says this. So yeah, it's definitely a as you mentioned, part art, part science on how we approach that for sure.
Yeah, I actually kind of bringing this full circle. What I also think is interesting is when you made the comment, Skylar, about the kind of like something that you learned the hard way, which is the digging deeper. I think sometimes, like with data, where I struggle, Mike, is and this is a whole thing. Like, what's the from a marketing perspective with data, we touched on this a bit. Like, I can look at raw things, but does that really mean what am I making it mean versus what does it mean? Sometimes people just respond to something. It doesn't mean they're interested. There's no qualification. And so for me, on the data side of things, right, kind of, I there there's just obvious performance things, right? You run an ad in LinkedIn, you get this, you get that, whatever. Hopefully you kind of tweak your algorithm because you're whatever, and hopefully to your point, Mike, you're getting the recipe right. You know what I mean? To get the numbers that you want. What does it mean? Do I know if someone saw something 8 times that they're necessarily going to do something else? I don't know. So
Yeah, no, it's kind of a mixed bag. And when it comes to like my role on the sales side, like I'll look at different cold emails that I send. I look at the data and I go, all right, this one worked, this one didn't. I thought this one would work. It was more creative. So what do I need to do to kind of get back to this one, but take some, what I've learned from this, and the same thing like on social media, like see like what kind of post worked, what kind of post got like more engagement or more interactions. And I mean, you could really use it to a lot of different things in business. Like even from my role, it's like, okay, I did a trial with this person. This group of people didn't really work out, but this group seems to have more success. And when I did this, I got a lot more engagement. These people were emailing me back, and they were texting me. Versus when I did this, it was, I didn't get much, just crickets. So kind of, but using that creativity to drive that data.
Yeah, definitely. I think it goes back to what you said, Judith, earlier about bespoke events, having a compelling, unique event people want you're going to FOMO over, right? It's something different. Yeah, you're going to test something and it works. If everybody's doing one thing, maybe you do something else because you want to be different, you want to be compelling and out in the space and rise above the noise, if you will. So you're gonna A/B test a lot of stuff. Some stuff's going to work. Some stuff's not going to work after maybe 30 days. You're gonna try and retool and rethink different things, and also looking at the data and saying, okay, am I on point, or is things waning or going against me in a certain direction? Do I need to readjust or retool or adapt?
yeah, I look. It's an ongoing. Hopefully you have enough plot points that you can continue to refine, right? And you can continue to, you know, both marketing and sales are kind of their own AI, right?
That's true.
We're,
Yeah.
we're learning as we go, right?
My plot points are kind of thinning over time, but uh, no, for sure. No, this has been great. This is a great conversation. We appreciate the time, Judith. This has been very enlightening, just to kind of hear your thoughts and to how you think about things from a go-to-market strategy perspective, and how sales and marketing should kind of work together and be collaborative, and how that kind of your approach from starting out, from building things to getting into data, to that really has kind of framed up some interesting things for our audience. So it's very helpful.
Well, thank you both for having me. I I've enjoyed working with both of you historically, so it's nice to be kind of on the just objective side of kind of taking a reflective look back.
Absolutely.
In closing, Judith, thank you so much. This has been great. We're going to include your LinkedIn down below, links to connect with you, and encourage you to reach out to Judith and love talk marketing with her.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Judith.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Please make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this, and reach out if you're interested in starting a fund, whether it's a hedge fund, VC fund, whatever fund you're thinking. We can help you out, and let us know if there's any other topics that you'd like for us to cover. Thanks for watching.